I didn't have any huge exits, and I had a couple small successes along the way. I was roughly consistent for the 10 years that I've worked. I was just like, all right, I'm going to keep working at this company and slowly chip my way up, and got obsessed with SEO. So that was my chance to give it a shot. I was able to make it work, and within a year or so, I was making more than what I made at my old job.
Want to attract and convert more leads? Want to learn how digital PR, branding, and SEO can establish and build your brand identity? Welcome to the Market Movers Building Brands and Links with Linkify podcast. We answer these questions and help you ramp up your brand visibility and credibility. Let's cut through the noise and make your business the talk of the town. We're your hosts, Nick and Chris. Let's get this show on the road.
Welcome to the Market Movers podcast. Today we're joined by my good friend Doug Cunnington, founder of Niche Site Project, host of The Doug Show, and the mind behind the Keyword Golden Ratio, as well as a bunch of other really exciting projects. It's really good to have you on. Welcome to the show, Doug.
I'm pumped to be here. I'm so glad you invited me. So let's get into it.
Doug, it's awesome to have you on. Just before we hit record, you're talking about how you retired. I know you've been working online for 10 years, so why don't you tell us about that journey and then how you got to a point where you can claim you retired? That's amazing.
Yeah, and I'll put in the caveat. I call it semi-retired because I do produce the podcast and a couple things, but basically last year, I let my revenue drop by 95% or something like that, and then my wife stopped working. That's the credentials. People could sort of beat me up on the details, but I don't work too much these days. Basically, I didn't have any huge exits. We were, chatting just before we started, and it's like, did you do something huge? What happened? And I had a couple small successes along the way. I was roughly consistent for the 10 years that I've worked for myself. And then I worked for about 9 to 10 years before that at a corporate career. So I'll paint a really quick picture, and then you could dive into some details if you're interested. So I had a corporate job, and I did management consulting. I worked at a company called Accenture for a couple years, and then a competitor for a couple, 9 years after that, and did project management. So it was lightly technical. It was sort of soul sucking. I wasn't that good at it. I sort of dreaded it. And I thought, okay, maybe I could make middle management position. And this kind of consulting is basically the Bobs from Office Space. So people can visualize that. And then the nightmare of having to do that for your job. Around 2013, I got into niche sites basically, and found Pat Flynn and dove in, got obsessed. I really didn't have the idea of side hustles or entrepreneurship or anything like that. I was just all right, I'm going to keep working at this company and slowly chip my way up, and got obsessed with SEO. Fast forward a couple years later, in 2015, I had a couple successes, nothing huge, but I had the taste of making essentially replacement income. It was a roller coaster, but I was I think I can do it. Also in 2015, I got laid off. So that was my chance to give it a shot. Now, my wife wasn't super on board, but through some negotiation, I was able to make it work. And within a year or so, I was making more than what I made at my old job, which is actually pretty quick, but I did work at it a little bit. So the other thing, if we go back to the corporate job, for the first 2 or 3 years, I maxed out my 401k. So good foundation, and people are probably aware of compound interest, but it's exponential. So it wasn't that much money back then. And it was during different financial crises and stuff, the dot-com bubble. So it wasn't, it was fairly flat, but you fast forward 20 years, you've 4x that or more, because the markets have indeed been crazy. So in 2015, started working for myself, did really well for about 5 years. And for the last 5 years, I've been doing maybe 20 to 30% less work each year. So you can see how that kind of just trails off to where I am now. And along the way, I heard Mr. Money Mustache talk about the 4% rule and a couple other things. And if people dig into that, you'll find many blogs that talk about it. But this guy who lives in the town that I now live in just moved here through dumb luck. And he retired when he was 30. He's been retired for like 19 years at this point or something. So he's been retired longer than he actually worked. So the 4% rule basically tells you that if you look at your annual expenses, you multiply it by 25, that's about the nest egg that you need. And there's some debate around it, but basically it gets you in the ballpark. And then you have the ability to review your finances and your expenses and your values and whatever, and figure out if you can stop earning money or earn much less. So that is where I am now.
That's awesome. So you achieved that sort of figure, that dream figure, in order to be able to go, well, we don't actually need to work now, or can reduce and just do what you enjoy.
You got it. Yep, exactly that. And, there's a lot of ways to do it. I mean, some people are into real estate. I have some friends that have several Airbnbs, and they were able to, really beef up their net worth through, leverage in real estate. And then they were also able to get that great cash flow, whether it's, short, medium, or long term. I hate real estate. I had a bad experience, not my thing. And I do index funds, not financial advice at all, but like if people research, like my way is a little bit lazier. Maybe the returns aren't as good, but I don't have to really do much. It truly is passive. Like we were just doing our taxes, and the amount of we're not dividend investors, by the way, but the amount of dividends that we are earning now, like passively doing nothing, was like pretty shocking to us. So yes, we amassed that amount. I'm a lot more, I have the entrepreneurship mind, right? So I'm like, I could figure some stuff out. My wife, way more conservative. So her number was a little higher, and through fierce negotiations, we did hers. So we did hers, which turns out better because, there's volatility and all that stuff. But, and I'll highlight again, I'd never had like really huge earning years and never had a huge exit. I have had some friends with 7-figure exits, and I'm like, holy shit, that's crazy. That's absolutely amazing. But I never had anything like that.
That is really cool, because I think that's what people think about when they think about exits. They're looking at, I mean, it's a bit different in the niche site community. They kind of have that mindset, but outside of that community, exits are thought of as like, it's life-changing. You're going to go sit on the beach and you're done. But I think that's a cool path, have a couple base hits, as you called it. It gets you to the same point. Maybe you don't have the yacht, but do you need the yacht? It's probably not any good in Longmont, right?
No. You're highlighting something really important. Because I did this gradually, I was able to sort of like shape my lifestyle into what I want. And I've had friends that, had the big exit, and then, you think when you get $3 million, like you're going to be happy. Turns out that just takes away the excuse of not having the money, and you still have to figure your shit out. I've had other friends who also amassed basically that amount of money. They've saved $5 million by the time they're like 42. Again, through the same sort of just, early investing, compound interest. They never had a big exit. They just have a normal job. But then they retire and they're not happy. Yet they're sitting on a pile of money and they're just like, I'm not sure like what I'm supposed to do now. My obsession has been more towards like lifestyle and happiness, and making sure, in our, I'll say our industry, even though I've sort of stepped aside from so much entrepreneurship, a lot of conferences that I went to, people are like, I want to take it from 7 figures to 8 figures. And they're like, I want to grow more. And I quickly realized when I gave my introduction, I'm like, I'm trying to work a little bit less this year and say no to more stuff, which is, I'm like, okay, I'm doing a different thing here, and like respect to whatever people value. But I was like, you know what? That sounds like too much work, because at heart, quite lazy.
Well, you say that, but I think you probably hit this figure where you could have really taken the foot off the gas, but you told us before we came on, you've had a few epic failures, and it's taken a mindset shift for you to really say, hang on, I don't need to do this anymore. So I want to know, when did you truly hit that figure? Why did you put yourself through some epic failures, and what were they, and why have you now come to the realization that you can just enjoy what you've built?
Yeah. So I think we'll just call it. So my wife retired in 2024 in like Q1. and she hung around to get the bonus from her job, right? So she hung around a little bit. So we'll call it the end of 2023. And around that time frame, I had a couple ideas in my head. And again, entrepreneurship mind, like we have ideas, we have a list of stuff. We don't even have time to get to it all, right? So I was like, okay, I cleared my plate. This won't come off the list, and I'm thinking I want to do it. So there were a few somewhat related. So I'll give the two best. I thought I'm going to start a podcast. So I have two current shows. I've started others in the past and helped people produce and launch their own shows. And I thought I'm gonna start a show, and then I'm gonna build it up. I will put together the framework and all the production stuff and essentially create sort of like a turnkey podcast. And I will start hosting it. I'll kick it off to get the listenership, and then I'm going to sell it. Because actually, Chris, one of our conversations, I was like, hey, you know what? Someone like you, maybe you would buy my podcast. So I would see agencies and other larger companies that were growing. They now had a marketing budget, and they saw the power of podcasting and the trust that it builds and all the benefits, right? Podcasting's hot. So I was like, I'm going to start a show. I'll get some advertisers so it'll actually earn some money, and then I'm going to sell it. And I was able to launch the show. I recorded like 48 episodes or so.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm going to target it not at consumers, but at you guys, people that attend conferences, people that sponsor conferences, all this stuff, right? Seems smart. Everyone was like, this is a good idea. Never heard of anyone doing it. So let me know how it goes. And there's some hurdles to figure out. The host, you have to turn it over and all this stuff. So I started the show. I interviewed a bunch of friends. I had some solo episodes. I was doing this pretty methodically, and I had SOPs for everything again, so I could just turn it over to someone. And basically, I was only getting a couple hundred downloads per episode, which was much like you don't have to have a ton if you have the right audience, but it was probably like 5 to 10% of like where it should have been. Like I needed at least 1,000 or 1,500 downloads per episode before anyone would pay much attention. And at some point, I think it must have been around summertime. So I think I worked on it for about a quarter. And then I was like, I can cuss, right?
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I was like, no one's listening. Why am I doing it? I was like, fuck this. I have these other shows. Like, I'm out of here. So I tried to figure out how I could like unravel it. And then I was like, you know what? This is all sunk cost. I'm done. So I basically like stopped publishing. It's still out there on YouTube. I turned off the podcast hosting. I was just like, I'm out of here.
Do you think if it would have got to 1,000, 2,000 downloads per episode, do you think it would have had some interest then? Like if you're going to do this again, what would you do differently?
Great questions. Yeah, I think what would have naturally happened is people would have started listening to it. So we'll say 1,000 again. And just so listeners know, like if you have a podcast of like 1,000 listeners, like that's actually very good. And if you have like agency owners and other decision makers and people that will spend money, like that's a hugely valuable audience, really valuable. So it doesn't sound that big, but that's really big. So what would have happened is people would have noticed and people would have tried to advertise on the show. And I thought people will come to me and I will know who values it and who would buy the show. So I was like, if someone advertises, then they're some of the people that I will try to court them to see if they want to buy the show. Like, hey, I'm going to be selling this. If this connects with your business, then you should buy it. And I honestly, I was like, I think I might be able to sell it for like 6 figures-ish, maybe not in a lump sum, but I was like, I think I could probably get $100K for this if I work on this for like 4 months or so. The other part, like the thing that I would do different is actually put time into it. So I know how to produce a show. I actually prepared a little bit and created notes and like did a few things that you should do pre-production wise. But I didn't go like to conferences. If you go to a conference, hang out with people, like, hey, I'll interview you, like check out the show. Like you could actually like tell people about it and like get the word to spread. Like that can work, but I don't go to, marketing or SEO conferences. And basically I wasn't doing any like active promotion, and I'm not too pushy. If I'm interviewing someone, I'm like, here are the links. If you want the video, you create clips, whatever you want. If you do a ton of other repurposing of content, you could have it. But overall, I just didn't put in the effort. I treated it like a complete side project and I didn't have the motivation.
Did you enjoy the show that you were doing? Was it in on a topic that you enjoy, or?
Yeah, you got to the heart of the matter too. So like, I didn't enjoy it as much as I do like my show Mile High Fi, where I'm talking more about lifestyle and early retirement stuff. The SEO topics are interesting, but as SEO has gotten more volatile and crazy and things are shifting, I was doing less of that, and I was like a little less interested in all the drama and such. And honestly, sometimes when I was like asking people questions, I was like, that kind of worked before, but I'm like, I don't know if that works anymore. Like how, like we don't have any real data. And I have sympathy for the industry in that way, because I'm like, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't work across the board, and it's largely inconsistent, and it could change like that too. So I wasn't super into it either. Again, like low motivation. I didn't have the fire in me, closely related to some of the topics that I covered in the past for the Doug show. So it's like, what am I even doing?
I think that's a good one. I could actually see that working quite well. All right. The second one, what was the second failure?
I have these podcasts, and I have talked at conferences about podcasting. I love the format. And I thought, so many people are asking me about podcasting that, hey, I do online courses. This is an obvious thing. If people are asking you, do a course. The other part, I was like giving people advice. And if you don't charge them, especially like in your sort of in-person local network, people were like, hey, ask Doug about podcasting. I'd sit down and tell them all this stuff, and then they wouldn't follow any of my fucking advice. And I'm like, I just wasted time, and I could buy my own coffee, guys. Like, you don't need to buy me a coffee. Like, don't pick my brain while you buy me a coffee. So I was like, all right, if people ask, I can give them some good resource. I'll point them to a free resource. And if they really want to dig in, they could take a course with me. So I ran a workshop style boot camp, and I had 3 people enroll, and 3 people launched their pods. I showed them how to do it where they could produce it themselves relatively cheaply, actually dramatically cheaper than working with like a production company. Yeah. And went through it. They're happy with it. I kind of had a tight way to do it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to sell this on a grander scale, because I did sort of like a beta version. And I launched it to my 10,000 person email list and sold 0. I sold 0. And I've launched like 6 other courses, and I've had like 70K launches like in a week, like those kind of crazy numbers where you're like, what does that even mean? That's like more than I made in my first job, right? And then I sold it. I have a decent copywriting background now, and sold 0. And actually, I've talked to other people that launch courses around the same time, different industries, and some people that you may know. And they were like, I also sold 0, but like, no one really wants to talk about how bad they did. But like, it happens. And they were like, yeah, I sold 0 also. And I was like, it's good to know there's others out there. And I knew it was a risk. And the big issue was I had an email list of people interested in SEO and niche sites and other marketing things like that. And I tried to sell them a podcasting course. And that can work maybe if you have a list of maybe 50,000 or 100,000, which that would be huge. But there's enough people in there where like you can get a trickle of people and maybe have like 20 people sign up. But I sold 0. And that was like the other part where I was like, all right, you know what? I think I'm just going to fold that up too. So they were kind of related. I was launching the Ranking Revolution podcast in the boot camp. So like I launched a show alongside the people. So it was like, I'm signing up for this stuff. Like we're doing all this together. And that was sort of the idea. And then I had like recording. So, people could go through it. So that was the second failure also related to podcasting. And that's when I decided to just stay on like this side of the microphone. And like, I don't need to like sell a course just because I think I can.
Do you think it could have been something as simple as like the price point, the time, like, did you literally, you just gave up? The launch was unsuccessful, no signups, you just put it to bed, didn't go back?
Yeah, you make me sound like a quitter, man.
No, I mean, that's the right move. You see too many people, I think, like they try something, it doesn't work, and they just keep going at it. I think putting it out there, seeing the reaction, seeing if people are interested, and then going hard if it works.
Yeah.
That's right. I think it's the right move.
It's interesting. So I wanted to talk about both of those points. So Chris, you got it. Like there's a couple things that can be wrong. It's like the price, the offer, or the audience. There could be a couple things, but often related to those. The price, I think I was happy with the price. I would think I was charging like $1,000, maybe 2,000 or so. What I learned over the years with my courses is I don't want to deal with like the lower tier pricing. Yeah. They're often much more demanding, and I just don't like, it's less money, obviously, right? So like there's a clear incentive to like not go that direction. But when you're dealing with people that like really value it, it's just like they respect your time a little bit more. And I wasn't going to lower it any more than, I wouldn't go under like maybe 500 or 600 or so. But I was like, you know what? I want a higher tier. I want people that are serious about it, that will actually follow through. Not guaranteed if they spend more, but they have more of an incentive to work through it. And then Nick, to your point about, continuing to work on something, even though it's like clear there's an issue with it. Because I put myself in a financial position where I didn't need to work, it was easier for me to just like, hey, I'm out. I could revisit it in the future, but I'm out for now. Yeah. The thing that I would do, and I actually had this like within my power, within my network. So I have some friends that run like podcast editing or production agencies. And we're not competitors, right? Like if I teach people how to podcast and then those people go to the agency, like we have complementary businesses. And I should have gone to my friends that have these agencies and say, hey, like I'm gonna run a launch here. Like your affiliates, I'll tell people like, hey, if you want to do a turnkey situation, you work with them. This is a white glove situation. These are like some of the premier agencies out there. And then we could have worked together and at least spread the word. And again, like I have a good overall reputation, even with like former competitors through all this stuff that I've worked through. I'm like, those are just potential future partners. Like I've never burnt bridges or anything like that. So I definitely could have gone like a little bit outside of my audience where it was the right audience, where people are like trying to find information about podcasting. But I was honestly, I was just like, I don't want to ask them. And then I was like, I'm going to have to provide all this marketing material, which is a lot of work. And again, I'm just lazy at heart. That we're going to come back to that. But I am lazy at heart.
I think it goes from like, this will be a nice little side project to now the amount of work, it's like it's a full-time job again. Like, so I can see where you would think like, all right, if it's something I can do a little bit on the side, small time commitment to go. If it means I've got to like build out a full marketing channel and do all this, it's too much. Yeah. All right. So those two failures, what else have you been up to? I think this is like, for an entrepreneur, the retirement dream is mostly like, now I have time to see like what cool things I could go build. It's not that I'm going to sit on the couch and watch TV. What other things are you seeing out there? What have you been working on?
So a little recency bias on this, but really like guitars. And during the pandemic time frame, a lot of people like just bought guitars and got into it and stuff like that. And I've played for a few years. I'm not that great, by the way, but I got a nicer guitar. So in the last couple of years, I've been trolling Craigslist and like Facebook Marketplace. And I just kind of keep my eye out. I mean, I've made some mistakes where I've like purchased some gear that was like not priced that well, but I am like finding some pretty cool deals. So I have just lightly been flipping guitars on
Interesting.
Craigslist. And the thing is, like, I had one guitar for like 20 years, and then I have several now, less than 10, close to 10. But basically, if you find a decent deal, you can get this super nice guitar, play it for a few years, and I'm not going to keep it forever, I realized. And then if you get a good deal, again, like real estate or any other business, like if you buy it at a good price point, you're going to probably be able to make some good money on it. So like I bought a fairly nice Martin for about half of what it was worth. I played it for a couple years and then sold it for like twice as much. And then I bought another guitar, which was like super awesome. The one I just purchased, it's behind me here. It's a 1933 Kalamazoo KG11. So
Wow.
it's like Depression era, super cool and great shape. Like the person, I think the guy had a recording studio. He didn't quite know what he had. He didn't have any money in it. Someone traded. So he had like some monetary value, but it was a little bit off from like what the true value was. So anyway, that's a fun little thing. And the side note is I also sold my truck. So I've had the same like F-150 for 18 years. It was a 20-year-old truck. And from working online and understanding marketing and copywriting and looking at some of the ads on Craigslist where someone will just like list the year and the mileage and say like fair condition. There's like no story behind it, you know? So I wrote like a couple pages, like here's the truck, here's how I got it. Here's some adventures we've been on. So there's like pictures like in the mountains, Mount Rushmore behind it, like all this stuff. And I got like twice as much as what Kelly Blue Book suggested.
Wow.
So just some little stuff where I'm like, I'm taking these skills from
lessons.
marketing,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, paint a picture, like sell me the truck, and it's pretty fun to like go through the whole thing.
That could be your next business, a copywriter for used cars. Like,
Craigslist.
I would have never thought of that.
It's so
awesome.
interesting. Yeah, and it's like when you look at especially a used car. I don't buy cars often, right? The last time I purchased one was 18 years ago. And basically, if you're getting a used car, like you're walking around, kicking the tires, trying to find out like what they're hiding from you. I listed everything that was wrong with it. So that I highlighted that. So I was like, there's an issue here, there's an issue there, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, the people were like ready to just like buy it without even test driving it. Like basically they're just like,
Built so
we see
much
what's wrong
trust.
with it. Yeah. And it's like, it builds so much trust overall. So those are a couple little things that have been on my mind. I'm just excited about the guitars overall.
Okay, so are you excited by anything online with the onset of AI? There's new tools coming out every day. I know when we last spoke that you'd been playing with some stuff, but it's almost impossible to keep up with. But is there anything there that excites you that you're interested in?
Yeah, couple areas. I haven't been using them as much for like content creation, but I'll give you 2 to 3 examples. Number one, I am actually writing a book on laziness. So I referenced the lazy stuff before, but my podcast co-host for my other show, he and I had a like pretty good brainstorming session. And then we actually started to write the book. So I think we're like 80% done. But the thing with writing a book about laziness is like, it's hard to get around and finish it. So he stepped away and I'm going to step up as I have some free time. So that's one thing where like, I don't want to use AI to write it, but I think AI can be a great editor and help me find holes in the logic, or where do we need, a little story? Where do we need a case study or an example? And potentially the thing that I'm thinking about right now is like, there's a lot of volatility in the stock market, for example. I don't want to like put a bunch of that sort of detail in because it's not timely. So one thing, like once I have the first draft done, I would definitely want to use AI to help edit, tighten things up, and help identify like, hey, is this a timeless set of chapters, or is this like set in a time period where it's not going to be useful in like 5 or 10 years? So just that kind of logic. the other thing with AI for the truck, for example, so my wife and I, we had a car each for ever since we've known each other. So I sold the truck, and I was curious about how much cheaper the overall expenses might be to get rid of the truck and then rent a car whenever I need to, or get an Uber or whatever. And I was like, maybe that'll happen like 10 times a year or something like that. So of course I got my own paper out, and I was like, okay, here's all the expenses I think it is. And I made a pretty good estimate of what I thought it might be. But I did go to AI, and I was like, I think I went to Gemini. That's my AI of choice currently. So I was like, I have this truck. I think I want to sell it. How much would I save? Like, what's the actual raw numbers of like selling the car and having just one car and then having to rent or get an Uber whenever I need it, and like tell me all the details. And it's really cool to see the logic, and then it provides a table. And obviously that was a fairly simple example, but you could do this in much more complex ways. And at this point, you can see the work, you could ask to recheck the logic and really understand what's happening. And I think if you take that, and maybe you were writing a blog post about going down to one car and the cost associated and all that stuff, you'd be able to use the intermediate steps to like actually write a better blog post versus just having, just the answer at the end and these sterile, uninteresting AI situations.
Yeah, I find myself using Gemini 2.5 a lot, but just on things like that, work and personal life, just things you need to figure out. Maybe before you would have sat down with a calculator and a pen and paper, or you'd go to Google and it'd be like multiple searches. Now it's just like one prompt, give a couple details, does all the heavy lifting for you. It's a incredible time saver. Mm-hmm. I think it's a nice age we're living in. On the business side of things, anything in the AI startup space, AI side hustles that have your eye that you think are interesting business models?
Nothing jumps out, and I'll be honest again that I am a little lazy. So one thing that we talked about before recording, you guys were like, I bet you're observing a lot, and like you're able to see what's going on. And I haven't been paying too much attention. I feel like I've been disappointed at some of the stuff that I did see. So this could be a little controversial, but I'll say it anyway. I have somewhat of a coding and programming background. I have a computer engineering degree. So I like spent a lot of time in those classes and like behind a keyboard and dark basements and all that kind of stuff. And I see people that are basically using the AI tools to do the coding, and they're pulling together tools. And I think it's great that it's in everyone's hands, right? There's no barrier. And I think that's cool. But I also see people like teaching courses on how to do it. And I'm like, dude, you don't even know what you're doing. I hope neither of you guys are doing that, right? So,
no, but I've seen loads of those courses,
and I'm just like, I know it is good because like they can teach a little bit more, but I'm like, this could be like valuable for like 2 more weeks, and then like that whatever you're teaching is like out. So, respect for people to try to do something and like launch a course or whatever. But when I see that, I'm just like, they're sort of seizing the opportunity and maybe taking advantage of people a little bit. People that are building legit tools to like solve problems that they're working on, great, do that. Like it's a stair-step approach and all that. But like, because I'm doing less stuff online, I'm not trying to solve people send me their tools that they've developed. They're like, do you want to test it for free? And I'm like, no, I don't want to like debug your code. I'm not doing I don't want to use your half-baked tool. It's not even solving a problem I have. So unsatisfying answer. But what I observe, I'm like, I'm not that interested in seeing this intermediate step. I want to see version 3 when some of this stuff is fully baked, done. What do y'all think? Correct me where I'm wrong.
No, I agree. It's nuts because it's just improving so much now with the natural language. They just brought out something today, Firebase natural language app tool. You can just literally describe what you want and it'll build it in Firebase, and then you can launch an app, and it's an iteration on the other tools, and it's just iteration is just so quick. And yeah, it is quite humorous when you see someone do like a full-blown course on like an NA10 workflow that contains 1 billion nodes, and you think that it might not even be that tomorrow. But what me and Nick both think is what is interesting is having is understanding how and where to utilize these things within your business or within an existing business, as opposed to, hey, look at this cool shit that you can do that actually, what am I going to do with that? But I think it takes a lot of hard work and foresight and thought to think about how can we effectively implement this stuff. So that's what excites us and terrifies us, but more excites us.
A lot of it is just hype. You see the people like, one-click business. You're going to run your entire business with this one click. And then, you look at those automations, they definitely break. Those aren't running smoothly. I think we were getting really excited about the things we could build on the marketing space, but it's been the really boring operational things that we've actually implemented that are like, all right, this was an actual bottleneck. Someone was sitting down and doing this. And now that person gets to go focus on something more fun, and we've made the process smoother and faster. So those are the things that have been a game changer for us, I guess. But there's definitely a big hype cycle going on of like it can do everything for you. You just tell it a tool and it launches it. It does maybe like 80% of the work, but yeah, it's not there yet where you can just put in a prompt and launch something that is can be deployed and work well, I think. Now, by the time this podcast goes out, that might be false. I might be able to do it by then.
It is fast. Yeah. Well, and thanks for keeping me honest. And it's good to hear rational thoughts about it that aren't so hyped up. Because I know, some people are just so into it. And it's like, it's not quite like that. It's 80%. That's pretty good. But like that other 20% is like the important 20%. So.
Yeah. Doug, as we approach the end of the show, I'm just intrigued to know, as somebody who, let's be honest, niche sites were great, and as someone who's like lived and breathed the sort of FIRE movement, this whole idea of setting aside X amount per month in order to set yourself up to have that financial freedom, niche sites were a great way to add or inject additional capital into that equation so that you could do it faster. What do you recommend people do now to try and achieve what you've achieved? They're a few years out of college, let's say, outside of just giving up their job. So, side hustle. What do you think's working? Should they start looking on Craigslist for guitars, or should they be looking at teaching people how to code with AI? What do you think?
So if you're a couple years out of college, we'll just say in your 20s, you're in your 20s, like do as much investing and not advice, but like probably index funds, like people do your own research and that sort of thing. But if you can lay a really good foundation early on, the compound interest is not too exciting for the first few years, but like after 10 or 15 or 20 years, then you're like, holy shit, like I'm a genius. This is absolutely amazing. So definitely lay a good foundation. As far as like what's working now and like online, I don't know. If people are telling you that they have the answer, I would probably, just do your due diligence on whatever it is they're selling, because that's what you have to look out for. And that's what I sort of observed on YouTube. I watch a ton of YouTube and I'm like, I don't feel like I trust what people are telling me. And I don't think it's necessarily like bad intentions, but it's just like their content that they create is based on like sort of the hype cycle and like getting people to watch. And if you look at my YouTube channel, I'm running it into the ground. I'm just publishing what I want. I'm not playing along, which doesn't get more views and it doesn't help it grow, but I won't burn out. And I'm not saying anything that's sort of like, that won't be true in a few years, I hope, right? Like I'm trying to stick to sort of timeless ideas. So all that to say, I don't know what people should focus on. However, right now, when there is so much uncertainty on what is working, I think there's great opportunities. We just don't know what it is yet. So we had the sort of niche site blueprint for many years and it worked a lot. I mean, it shifted a little bit over time and then it changed very fast. So I think, people can go out and test stuff and, go to the medium that you enjoy. If it's writing, like do that, email list or maybe a local directory or something. And if you like video, do that, short form, whatever. Like you can find whatever you want to do. And hopefully you'll be able to figure out a business model that can work. But on the other side, I would look at like the physical world. So like I was talking about like going on Craigslist, finding deals. It seems like you should not be able to find deals. Like there's so much information that anyone can get at any time. Like you can see how much that guitar should sell for, but the person like didn't do the research and they just put up like one picture of that guitar. And literally I could like sell it for twice as much as I bought it for, like right now, like immediately. So if you go to the physical world, there's like a ton of opportunities. And I think that is totally okay. Like we have the idea of like, passive income or do it online and like print money while you're sleeping and all that stuff. Hard work in the physical world is even more valuable now because, it's harder to get people to show up. So I would say, be open-minded. And if I needed to get a job, I do have the entrepreneurship mind. So I would probably do some landscaping stuff around here and like get paid cash, like right away, no publishing on your blog for like a year before you get traffic or anything like that. Like I go cut their grass and I got like $150 like right then. So
nice. So yes, find your passion. And I think it's never been easier to use AI to find the business opportunities. If you find what your passion is, you can, figure out ways to make that work, ways to build a business.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. I was just going to say, passion, it's got to be within, it can be within your passion. And unlike before where you go, well, I like being outdoors and I like flowers, let's say. Well, okay, I could do landscaping, but then you can use that. They gave me a patch of ground on my new build house. Nick knows how much this is frustrating me because I don't know what to do with it. I'm not a gardener in any way, shape or form, but I've got this patch of dirt and I need to turn it into a garden somehow. So I'm going to have to do some landscaping myself. And I can't visualize anything. I haven't got an artistic like bone in my body, but I've taken a picture of it, the space. I've drawn. GPT launched their new image generation model. So I drew on it where I wanted the stones. I drew where I want some grass, where I want like the back area to be some planters along the side, and I put a prompt into ChatGPT and it came out. It looks fantastic. It's like it's been designed by like an old school architectural program. Imagine if you could do that for your clients. It's like someone out of college or doing a summer job, landscaping. You could go take a picture of the guy, say, look, I'll do you a free quote. If you've got some ideas, tell me. I can bring you back some photos, what it looks like. Like the possibilities is just so cool and endless. So it's an exciting time.
amazing.
Yeah. And I've just had an email back from them, actually, I think, where they're meant to have provided me with topsoil, and they haven't. So I think they're going to come and inspect it. And fingers crossed, everyone, that they're going to come and give me some free topsoil.
We have to wrap this up before this turns into a rage. Okay, Doug, thanks for coming on. It's been an excellent chat. For people who want to connect with you, where should we send them?
Yeah, I would say head over to YouTube, the Doug Cunnington channel. I publish a show there each week. And then if you're interested in the financial independence stuff, you could look at the Mile High Fi podcast. It's a bit more on the advanced side. I don't cover too much of the basic stuff. But if you check it out, you could sort of like hear a lot of lifestyle and happiness kind of questions and answers with that. So thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Doug. And make sure you finish your lazy book as well. We want to make sure that comes out.
I'm gonna get right around to it. Yeah.
All right,
thanks so much, Doug.
Thanks.
And that wraps up this episode of Market Movers Building Brands and Links with Linkify. Big thanks to our parent company, Linkify, the wizards behind turning ambitious businesses into standout brands. Hit up our website at linkify.io and take the first steps towards brand greatness. Big shout out to Fame for making this podcast possible. Thanks for listening, folks. Stick around for more insights in our next episode. Catch you later.